startups, entrepreneurship, starting your own new business. Join me every week as we dive into stories, topics, and advices from the top founders, innovators,
The crazy ones, the misfits, the troublemakers.
every Saturday at 4 p.m. I'll see you there. You are empowering people differently. You are also in the business of influence. Content creation के अंदर कैसा है?
The schedule मेरा ऐसा होता था ज़ाबिस में कि 8 to 11 class हुई, 4 घंटे का break. So I used to go out with friends and eat. And it came to a point that it became so frequent that everyone would come and ask me, Osama, आज क्या खाया? So I realized there's a problem and there is a need. So why do I not just turn it into a thing? And at that time, there was no page on Instagram. Out of nowhere, in some time, it got featured as top 20 Instagram pages you have to follow. So that's how I started off and getting into content creation and food blogging.
How big of an impact do you see of social media in this time? And what are the losses if someone isn't adopting?
I push for people to make content of something that they really want to do. It's easy to get into the market, but it's difficult to keep up with it. In a lot of ways, you can be self-sufficient. It's something that if you really want to pursue or a certain subject, I feel like any subject could be anything.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Saad Allahwala and we're back with another podcast. Today we have a very special guest, someone different from what we usually call over. Usually we have startup founders, people who are doing business. But you are also in the business of influence. You're also in the business of monetization and you are empowering people differently. So today we have Osamah Nasir over. Osamah bhai, thank you so much for coming and giving your time on a Saturday morning. Saturdays usually chutti hoti hain, but thank you for your time. Osamah bhai, I want to first learn about you first. कि आप कहाँ से हैं, कहाँ पढ़े और ये content creation के अंदर कैसा है?
Right. Saad, thank you so much for having me. And to go back to the starting of this whole journey, so that's like 1993. So born and raised in Karachi. My mom's a doctor and my dad was always in the education side. So we've come from a space where we knew that we have to pursue something on our own. And शुरू से ये था because mom is a doctor कि हमें भी doctor ही बनना होगा.
अच्छा.
So I have 2 elder brothers and we all wanted to be doctors because we knew that doctor is one profession that is acknowledged and recognized in the society. B, it's a safer spot, you know, पढ़ना होता है, पैसा मिलता है, and then you have its own perks.
Okay.
But never realized that how much work it could be. So we all pursued medical in O-levels, पर जब result आया, so like it's a very similar but a different pattern. So हमने जब पहला साल आया, you know, we all 3 of us got straight A's, A, which was, you know, academic ability थी. But then
O-levels में?
O-levels में, yeah. But then when the second time came upon, like the second year of O-levels, none of us got A's in the subjects that we were supposed to get A's in.
Oh.
And I'm talking about back in like 2010, and my brother's like 2006 and 8, where, and I'm sure grades still do matter, but उस वक्त emphasis बहुत ज़्यादा था कि यार, if it's not an A, then what do you do next, right? So for me, I had always been a top student in my school. So if it's top 3, so that would be me. So that was something I was racing against. कि यार, ये होना है. So I spent a lot of my time in just reading books. And I was so enthusiastic about it that summers में अगले साल का course में पहले ही पढ़ चुका होता था, because that's what I was passionate about, just reading and studying science. But then when throughout my academic career, when, you know, my elder brother went through, he never got straight A's. So then the other brother come in, he never got straight A's. So then I felt this pressure on me कि यार Khandan mein pehli baar straight A's would be me, right? So
Oh.
I was like, I would do this because I have a much better track record than my brothers. So there was no reason for me not to secure those. But then when the result day came in, I was shattered. I was like, I worked all my life to get these grades and I haven't gotten it. So those were my teenage years where I realized that how much I have lost in just trying to pursue something which in the end never came upon. तो फिर वहाँ से फिर एक journey start हुई where I was like, I'm done with this medical thing. And my other brothers had also taken that chance. So सबने छोड़ दिया था. सबने कहा कि यार
कोई डॉक्टर नहीं बना फिर.
कोई डॉक्टर नहीं बना.
Oh.
We got Dr. Bahus instead. So
So the easy way out.
So that's something it worked out. But the thing is that for me it just became like a different path, because someone who has always invested into books, someone who has always invested into reading and pursuing academics, for me to switch from beyond medical to any other course was something that I was like, it's a big step. And so I pursued then A levels mein jaake I took economics, business studies, Urdu, asan subjects that economics is not easy, but subjects that I felt like I would be interested to study and something that I would like to pursue. So from there onwards, I just went with the flow. I never really fixated myself कि यार अब यही करना है, ये नहीं हो सकता, ये करना है. Though I wasn't getting great grades in A levels, but I was content because I started pursuing other things. I started debating. I went into public speaking. I was the most shyest kid back in O levels. I couldn't even talk in presentations, assemblies. It's public speaking is a very...
Yeah, of course. It's very intimidating. I would actually lock myself in the school's bathroom when I would be supposed to be go up on stage. So I never went on stage.
You
school.
have never?
In school.
In school, yeah, absolutely. And school life is where, I was like, there's so much about me that I haven't really unlocked. So I started to push myself into taking other things other than just studies. मेरा पढ़ाई तो होती रहेगी, I'll find somewhere in time. And luckily my parents also felt, yeah, let this be. Because like I said, I was shattered, and I think that was the first time I really, really cried, because I was like, why am I crying? It's just grades, but nobody was there to console me because I had so much expectations from myself. फिर मैंने क्या किया कि I did my A levels, and then there was a time to choose school, so I pursued. So my other brothers, a very funny, interesting story. We all went to different business schools because that was the only option we were left with.
Oh.
So my elder brother, he prepared for just IBA, he got into IPO, like cool. And then that's where he started to tell us how business schools make you. Because in the rest of the family, nobody had pursued BBA as a degree. We were all into medicine. Right? So for him to take that step was very different, and he started to educate us कि भाई ये चीजें explore होती हैं, 4 years, you can earn this much, you don't have to, medical was a very different path.
Of course.
So nobody had that.
I think you were mentioning about BBA and how you were getting enlightened by your brother.
Yeah, so he was the one who actually, showed us the way that there are other spaces and academic areas to explore beyond medical. And that was, of course, a very most blasphemous thing that my family could hear of. They're like, what is beyond medicine? But then my other brother, then he applied for all the schools and he only got into CBM. So that was there. And then when my turn came, I only got into SaadAhmedAllahwala. So all three of us had 3 different universities
but
to explore.
all of you guys in BBA.
So I went to BBA. I spent a semester. I was like, what is this? I am SaadAhmedAllahwala. So I was like, I don't want to do accounting. I don't want to do math. There should be life outside that, because I just did not want to repeat what I was doing back in O levels, trying to spend all my time figuring out a subject and crying about it and not doing anything beyond my studies. So after my 2 semesters, because that's when they allowed me to switch, I went to a subject that I loved the most, was economics, which I explored during A levels. And I really liked economics as a subject, so I wanted to pursue social sciences. And that was a risky step in my case because, again, BBA ka jab kisi ne suna, so social sciences was, what are you going to do? And even I did not know what I'm going to do when I took that subject. And I was like, log achhe hain, curriculum acha hai, we'll figure it out, you know? So that just became my thing, we'll figure it out. And my dad was supportive of it, and my mother was like, you do you. So like, we'll see. Kuch na kuch ho bhi jayega.
I think that's my dad's motto as well. Huh, Larry? वो कुछ हो जाएगा, हम शुरू कर लेते हैं.
Yeah. And that mantra really worked for me, and I switched to social sciences, and that's when and in social sciences, you know, they were less concerned about how we were dressed as, because हम चप्पल में presentation दे दिया करते थे. We used to wear anything, because I've seen a lot of business schools focusing on dress and not on the content of what is spoken. Especially in my case, I'm sure in different schools it's a different area, but just speaking from my experience. So while my ex-classmates were really being suited booted, I used to go in flip-flops, but the focus was a lot on what I'm going to say.
Onto the content.
And in social sciences, we were, of course, we were given the option to, you know, to debate, to critically think, to discuss, to contest, and it was just like a 4 years of just great conversation from different disciplines like sociology, psychology, and it really opened up my mind and what is beyond us in terms of what we know and how one should think. So in the second year only, there was a time, this is back in 2013, you would know, that the cafe culture was starting out in Karachi. So we only had like a few cafes. I remember there was just Butler's, which was at Osamah, but Xander's वगैरह उस ज़माने में नहीं थे. But slowly there was this rise in cafes opening up, and the schedule मेरा ऐसा होता था Zabis में कि 8 to 11 class हुई, 4 घंटे का break, and then 6 o'clock onwards. So what do you do in those 4 hours ka break? So I used to go out with friends and eat. And it came to a point that it became so frequent that everyone would come and ask me, Osama, aaj kya khaya? And kaisa laga? How much did you pay for it? And I was just a bit exhausted of telling each individual the same thing. So I realized there's a problem and there is a need. There is a need of people finding out, what am I having? So why do I not just turn it into a thing? And at that time, there was no page on Instagram that specifically covered Karachi's restaurants and food.
Really?
This is 2013.
Oh,
there is nothing as of
starting
that
off.
start.
Well, shuru hua.
And so 2013, I started off, and that was the vision that nobody's exploring cafes. And the issue was that there was a very popular group on Facebook, and you would see a lot of biased reviews going around there. And my idea was to just tell people what I'm having, and this is what it's priced at, and just give a rating out of a 10. A very simple method to how I would want to rate. And I'm not a food expert, okay? But I do believe in value for money. And I was like, yeah, मैं किसी चीज़ के 1000 रुपए दे रहा हूँ, I was happy to spend those 1000 rupees. If I feel happy, then I would recommend. Because knowing food is a very different space altogether, and I never wanted to label myself as a food expert or a food blogger, which these are the terms that really arise later on. But for me, was value for money. So if I'm spending 500 rupees somewhere, was it worth spending those 500 rupees? Great, you should too. Because in the end, it's all about how much you do eventually get out of from the money you spend. And that's how I pursued it. And then the conversations became so frequent that I was like, okay, let's, change my own personal Instagram from Osamah Nasir to Karachi Food Guide. And out of nowhere, in some time, it got featured as top 20 Instagram pages you have to follow. In 2014, there was a list. And I was like, okay, this is no longer a hobby. It's just something that I have to do it. So it started out with passion. It started out with a lot of food and pictures. And I've seen in these 10 years how Instagram itself has evolved. So I was one of those first people who would have we're trying to figure out filters, and it was just a very different space to what it is now. So that's how I started off with and getting into content creation and food blogging.
Awesome. And beach mein thoda sa, so before the podcast you were mentioning that you worked in a bunch of startups and you were living in Budapest.
Yes.
So what was that about?
So that's a very interesting story, and it connects to Budapest. That when I got done from my bachelor's, I came out and I was unemployed. I was like, "Ab main zindagi mein kya karu?" And everyone I knew from social sciences and the people, they were doing journalism, they went into writing, someone into research, and I knew I wasn't cut for that. So I gave a couple of interviews, idhar, but nothing I liked. I was like, what is this space? And if you visit these spaces, the offices of today's leading newspapers, they are not the most inviting environment. When you enter, you'll see their tutti frutti devarein. You'll be like, this is what I want to spend my 10 years of my life. This is not how it is. It's very, I don't know how to describe it. I just
Hamara
felt
bhi kagaz ka kaam hai, so I'm like, I can relate.
Yeah. So it wasn't too inviting as a space. And I was determined that I will not start something just for the sake of it. So wahan se somehow I saw like a Facebook group pe ek post tha on my own Zabist University's page that a top advertising agency looking for an intern, which may turn into a full-time job. I was like, what's the harm? I can do an internship at an ad firm. No idea what an ad firm is, no idea how they perform, what they do. I just ended up going there. And when I entered, I was so stunned by how the office looked. I was like, this is the place I want to work at. This is my thing. Like, and I had no idea what they do. For the same internship, there were 50 people who were contesting for it. So it still is the biggest advertising firm in today's time.
Kya naam tha, sorry?
It's called Adcom. So Adcom, Leo Burnett. So and at that time, of course, digital was starting out. People wanted to pursue the same thing, and I was like, how do I back this? And how do I increase my chances? Because they were looking for people who were into marketing and who have studied marketing, whereas I had not. So when I entered the room, there were two people who interviewed me, and the first question they asked me, what brings you here? You know, you studied something else. What is it that you can offer us? And there at some point, I just felt like instead of fabricating a story, I was just like, I'm just going to say it. I was like, does degree really matter? Yeah, I have understood what you guys do. So during the part where I was waiting, I asked a few people, what are they asking and how did their interview go? Like, so I got some information. Sometimes you just have to be a bit smart about things, right? So I just asked a few people and some were kind enough to tell me, ye sawal puche. So from what I understood, that they wanted someone to create content for Instagram and Facebook. So I was like, what you're asking me or other contestants to do, I'm already doing it. And I showed them my food page and they were like, wow, like, you already write captions, you know how the grid's working. There's already a portfolio to a certain extent. So how about that? And then, you know, just a good conversation. And they said, we'll let you know. And I had that very heavy heart because I really wanted to get in. They said, we'll take 2 days. Just an hour later, I get a call that we've hired you. And it felt like a big achievement because that's an internship. But I felt like I am moving towards a certain path that I am really want to explore. So from there, and this like a sort of a thumb rule that has come up that if you spend 2 years before you decide of doing masters. So I wanted to be sure and certain that I want to spend 2 years in advertising or in marketing and then realize that, okay, if this is the path I want to do, and then take a degree into it. So I spent 2 years in ad firm. From Adcom, I went to Leo from Mylan Low. Different portfolios. There I was looking at L'Oreal at Adcom, and here I was looking at Unilever's portfolio. So that was pretty interesting because there were lots of things to explore, from creatives and how to build a brand, new campaigns, launch campaigns. So I think advertising gives you a lot of areas to explore in terms of your creativity. So while I was pretty sure this is what I want to do, I then took step towards pursuing a degree in Hungary. So a lot of people will be like, why Hungary? Like, that's not the first thing.
That's why actually I asked you this question, कि Hungary क्यों?
Yeah.
मतलब बंदा Paris जाता या okay you Hungary से चलो step up Vienna चले जाते Budapest. Why Budapest?
I was very much keen to going towards Germany at one point, right? But I had a colleague who said, Osamah, what do you want to do after, this? I was like, I want to pursue masters. And she told me her friend is in Budapest and there he gets to work and study at the same time. It's a very good city for students and you should talk to him. I was like, sure. So I spoke to him and he mentioned that University of Buckingham has a campus in Budapest. So there is a British degree, but not in British cost, which felt like a good bargain. So the same degree, if I were to pursue it in UK, I would pay 3 times more than I was paying
100%.
in Budapest. And he said it's a great city. 95% of the students who have come and graduated from that university, from his batch specifically, did get jobs. So I was like, this sounds like a win-win. Why do I need to force myself to go elsewhere when Budapest has the culture, is offering jobs, and there's a British degree that you get. So I was like, I'm not gonna contest for fighting for the top 10 universities of the world and give my SATs, because I was so done with academics. I was like, I'm just not gonna prove myself in that way. So I left Budapest. I got my degree in international management, and luckily at the same time Bitcoin was hiring. So in my first 4 weeks, while I had just landed in, I had some time to apply for some internships. So I started off with them as an intern. There were 5 rounds of interviews, but that space felt so uniquely different to what I was exposed to. So I had no idea how this will roll out, because of course you are a foreigner, you're from Pakistan, and then getting a chance to work in your first 4 weeks at an international firm, it's a big challenge. But somehow it worked out, and before my classes started, I already had an internship in my hand. So there was a very different journey, because Bitcoin is something that I wasn't familiar with. I had no idea that it could be actually used as money, because crypto for me was always the most shadiest thing. Crypto mein kaam karta hai, kuch na kuch.
Achha.
I mean, that's how I'm talking about 4 years ago, right? Crypto ki knowledge abhi aisi hogi.
So with our foundation, we started a French fries ki thela in Karachi 12 years ago, where we accepted crypto. So, but it didn't work out.
Of course. If he's accepting it, who's gonna pay him, right?
No, we were accepting it. I mean,
but nobody else had to.
रुपया भी दे रहे थे, ये नहीं कि जी PKR नहीं ले रहे थे, लेकिन we were accepting crypto.
No, but
so we've been accepting crypto in our company as well, and we've made some
good money
through it.
Oh, that's awesome. But in a larger context, it was still, and still right now, that was a problem we were facing as a firm, that crypto is still not trusted as a form of transaction.
ऐसे ही.
That's the problem.
It's still not accepted widely.
Yeah. And उस widely क्यों? क्योंकि वो trust factor नहीं है, because encrypted है बहुत ज़्यादा, तो लोगों को लगता है कि यार ये what if my money gets lost in the internet, right?
Really?
Yeah, there is still a problem. It shouldn't be, because we were paid in crypto. So I was like, I don't want to be paid in crypto. They're like, you work for a crypto firm. If you don't get it and believe in it, then how else would you sell it to others, right? So that was a good fundamental belief. So we got paid in crypto, and then we used to, of course, transfer and convert the money into regular currency for our expenses. Okay. But the idea was, and my job was to build more acceptance around crypto in Europe, because even in Europe, it's still not.
उनके पास काम क्या कर रहे थे?
I was looking at their marketing.
Oh, उधर भी marketing थे.
Yeah, so I was looking at...
वाले ही हैं.
Yeah, so I've always been into marketing. So वहाँ पे I used to look at their socials. I used to look at their PR. And slowly then my role turned into a full-time role. So I was looking at their branding and activations. So I got to travel with them to Vienna and to Frankfurt to represent Bitcoin and get people to download the wallet as much as I can. So I was there until COVID happened. So I moved back to Pakistan.
And did you finish your degree?
Yeah, I finished my degree. My thesis I submitted from Pakistan only, because there were no classes anymore, but I had the option to submit thesis later. So lockdown was the best time to finish it. And then I got into an automobile startup, and then I got into another startup after it went down. So that was the whole journey in my so far as to what I've explored.
अब मुद्दे पे आते हैं कि you create content on social media now for yourself and for others, part of your job, and you found a job because it was your passion. You found a job in that space. We have a very large country. And we're not part of this country anymore. As you mentioned, कि जी उर्दू में content बनाए, we're part of this region क्योंकि we go past Pakistan now. तो अगर कोई उर्दू में content बना रहा है, they have a market of 1.5 billion people, not 250 million. But even if you focus on Pakistan, it's 150 million smartphones existing at this moment with YouTubes and TikToks installed. So looking at that and my father making content for the past 12 years, हमने ये स्पेस बनाई जहाँ पे लोग आके अपना कंटेंट बना सकें और जिस तरह आपने इसमें एक कमाना भी शुरू कर दिया और इम्पैक्ट लाना शुरू कर दिया उसकी ज़िंदगी में, even if it's through just providing them good food and awareness. How do you see this project, and then what kind of importance do you, because we've been telling people, okay, इस space में आ जाओ, अपना content बनाओ. Why? Because it's for you, it's not for us. We're not getting anything out of it. We're only putting in money. But how big of an impact do you see of social media in this time? And what are the losses if someone isn't adopting?
So that's a great question. So I'll tell you what really pushed me to start making more content today, because I had the chance to really focus towards content 10 years ago. But उस वक्त इतनी awareness नहीं थी. उस वक्त कोई idea नहीं था कि influencer marketing भी कोई चीज़ होती है. Content marketing was still in the works of working. So it wasn't really a thing. I remember I got like an email like from the biggest beverages that we have, and I said, I don't drink it, so I'm not gonna do it. So, so the idea was too young for me to adopt and accept that, hey, like, booked a picture of this certain brand, ye karo, wo karo. So, and today, of course, I would be happy to do a partnership with them. So for people and the impact, I would like to share a story, because I also felt like from a lot of time I was just doing food blogging and telling people where should they eat and have a good time. But for a few years, because I was so invested into my full daytime job, I never really got to explore anything beyond what I was already doing, which was food blogging. I was at a bookstore, and this guy comes up to me and he says, Osamah, you don't know yet how you have changed my life. और मैं 2 मिनट के लिए यही सोच रहा हूँ कि भाई I wrote about food. I'm not changing lives. I'm just talking about, hey, आज यहाँ खा लो, कल ये खा लो. Just like no good places to have food. So he asked me that, no, he didn't ask me anything. He said I asked him, I don't know how I would have done that, but I'll be happy to hear like how I have influenced your life. He said that his wife or वो खुद, सारी pictures save की हुए हैं from the day I've started it. That they saved a lot of my posts. And they like, हमने सोचा था हम जब भी कराची आएंगे हम ये भी करेंगे, ये भी करेंगे, ये भी खाएंगे, ये भी खाएंगे, ये भी खाएंगे. And his wife passed away. And both of them were, wanted to do this and explore Karachi on their own. He was based out of Lahore. तो सोचा कि Osamah जब भी मैं लाहौर जा रहा था, I just made me think of my wife, and I couldn't pass that. So for me to make new memories and with my son, the first thing I thought that I would do is go to Karachi, start my business here, go to these restaurants that my wife wanted to do and write about it. That, and like, writing something for his wife that, hey, we went to this restaurant that you really wanted to go. And he's like, the first city, and Karachi is not the first choice for people who are already in stable cities like Lahore and Islamabad, but he could have done a business elsewhere too.
Of course.
He wasn't, for employment, Karachi is, but not for any other places. So he said that I came because of you, and I'm so happy that I'm here. And I'm looking at him completely in shock. Like, I did not understand that, or never thought that how people may comprehend or perceive your content versus how you put it out there. I put it out with a very different intention. People may see it as a very different, in a different way. And from that day onwards, I thought like, I'm gonna do more than what I'm doing. And I wasn't doing enough at that time. I started doing reels and short form content. Previously, Instagram was focused towards pictures, and Reel was a new concept that came in. Instagram tried IGTV, but Reel was something short form content, thak lagao. And TikTok I hadn't pursued TikTok either for obvious reasons at that time. But I started both. And I realized that both the platforms have so much potential. Like, TikTok is super popular in the masses.
It is.
And I got to experience quite fast growth than I had anticipated. On Instagram, similarly, I started a series on biryani because I was like, we all talk about biryani, aisi, but nobody really has captured each and every biryani in Karachi. So I was like, maybe I start off with that. And when I started that, the response was quite positive. The videos went viral, and I was garnering 800K views, 1 million views, and independently on different platforms. The videos were being shared everywhere on different groups. So collectively, they were generating 1 million views everywhere. And then I started to experience that people were very interested into knowing more. And because of the algorithms have changed, and I felt like I could do this better, I could do this better. So I started that, and a lot of people fairly know me recently, but I've been in this for very long. So it feels a bit rewarding, and there's still a long way to go. But the impact is beyond that than I can think of. Now, of course, when you are bringing a change, you are then certainly rewarded, and you have options to explore in terms of monetary returns. So when I push for people to make content of something that they really want to do. Because there were a lot of people who started with me. 10 saal pehle, I remember there was a whole group of people. We used to go out and have food. It was a thing. But not many people were able to continue it.
Yeah.
Because maybe their heart was not in the right space, because this is work.
Oh, it is 100%.
It's not like khana piya khaya tasveer li aur khatam ho gaya. There is a lot of work that goes in, and I sometimes I feel like I'm doing two jobs because back then it was just a fun and a hobby. Now it's work.
I mean, you can't stop.
You can't stop, and I've done that. I was not too consistent previously. I was not focused, but today I feel like instead of thinking about the past, what could have happened and what could I have done instead, today I feel like, what can I do today, right? And be happy with the 10 years I've spent in this industry, and I feel like there's only more from now. So the impact, I feel like for me, it started out really well because of my content creation only, I got my first job. It acts as a portfolio, it acts as a profile, you have an identity within the society, and things are getting too competitive in the tech space or in any space that you see.
Even the content creation space.
Even the content creation space, it's getting tougher it's easy to get into the market. There is no barrier per se. You just start something and you can with the touch of a few touches. But it's difficult to keep up with it.
Right.
And to continue with it. So I would say that in a lot of ways you can be self-sufficient. It's something that if you really want to pursue or a certain subject, I feel like any subject could be anything. Like there could be a certain thing as like on glasses.
Right. There actually has to be a whole series on glasses. Even like with a handicraft, anything that's locally produced. All of our foods, yes, but we have so much more. We have so many locations, so much. कराची छोड़े पर तो पाकिस्तान में इतना कुछ है करने को कि कैसी फसल कैसी होनी चाहिए, लोग एग्रीकल्चर में कितना कुछ कर सकते हैं.
There is, I feel like there is, you can talk about everything and anything.
Yes.
And you will not run out of it.
जब खत्म हो जाएगा, okay. So you've run out of biryanis in Karachi. Okay, you just start trying them again because now you have to keep them updated, na?
And I haven't run out of biryani so far. I don't think it's because मैं गया नसीब पे, लोग कहने आपने वो वाली नसीब नहीं ट्राई की. I'm like, there are more.
I tried this one. मुझे क्या नसीब खानी है क्योंकि यहाँ बिल्कुल पीछे.
Yeah.
पर उसके बाद हो रहा है कि कहीं और भी है.
कहीं और भी है. हर जगह एक नसीब बिरयानी है. So I was like, I'm gonna die eating just biryanis. So yeah. So that is food. So now, so the idea is that story, though it happened, this incident where the person came up to me and told me that how food has influenced him. I took some time to really think that how much I could share and what else I can share with the audiences to maybe bring more value. So now I'm pursuing another series, and I got to know this person who makes these really nice cheesecakes, and also was from the advertising firm. And I wanted to review one of her cheesecakes. But I found out that she had battled through cancer. And the only thing that kept her going was her advertising job, as well as her passion for making these really nice cheesecakes. So I was like, how about we, if you allow me, I asked her, like, I want to talk about this more than that you are happy and there is hope after cancer, and you continue to do what you're doing. So nothing really has changed. You just had a tough period for some time, and now you are okay. And that's how people should see you. They should not see you as anything else. So it's a very sensitive story because I haven't really talked about anything else, and especially something as taboo as cancer. Like people still don't say the word, and people hide it. Right, and I think it's part of the recovery to express, to let people know that you are going through this. So I went to her space, and she made a nice cheesecake. I went through the process, and we talked about her battle. And there were no expectations. It was just a story. Saad, that video blew up. It touched so many people. Like I feel there were comments. I haven't never seen a video which had more than like 100% just positive comments. There's not even a single bad comment about it, because people find bad things in anything, right? It's a thing. I would be like the most purest person, be like, ye bura, right? But that video, it touched so many hearts, and Zara, the girl, her sales went off the roof. She has different opportunities to now represent and talk about her journey. There was media outside her house one day. She was like, what is even happening, right? So that's the impact. I felt like, wow, this is life-changing for her. Like she is able to get so many orders, and she, of course, want to eventually expand. But that was a push that I could support her through her story. So that was one thing that I realized. And then there was another person who randomly just messaged me, ke Osamah, bhai, I have a tikki chaat ka koi chota shop, and it's somewhere in Sadr. So maine kaha main kabhi gusar raha hu, to I'll stop by. He's like, maine abhi start kiya hai. So luckily, just 2 days I was just passing by. I was like, why don't I make a stop? Us waqt uske chaat pe na koi bhi nahi tha. He was just there. I was the first customer. I made a video and I posted about it. And 2 days later, I get a message that we went today to that spot, and he says he was sold out. He's like, that video got me to sell everything.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, like for me, it was just a stop. For him, it was, again, his business got a lot of boost and push. So I feel like for me, it has now become my mission to how I could add and contribute to the success of the other person, right? And eventually we share that energies, because we don't have that collaborative approach in neither in content creation or in the world of business, because that's a challenge that I see, and that's the change and difference I would want to see, is where I'm able to impact people and show how much we can achieve together versus on our own. And Asanik, if one does well, the other person does not get a chance. There's so much space and room for everybody that you don't have to compete but collaborate. And that's the mantra that I believe in. And that's just my small effort and impact into the same space. So yeah, so now I'm very pushed and motivated, and that's why I'm super early in the morning here today. I have a shoot right after that.
Oh.
But it doesn't feel like work, because I feel like I am making some difference, and I would want to continue doing that until I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. So you yourself just shared what is actually the power of social media and this mass media that's in everyone's hand, the smartphone.
Yeah.
You just scroll through, but in reality, it's actually changing people's lives. And so there's you as one individual, but how would you push other people to actually start making content? Because yes, there's someone who wants to start making content, but there's another person who actually needs to make content, and that person is an industry leader, a guy who actually has a factory of mugs, a guy who actually has a construction business or anything. And until he actually starts a dialogue with people in this industry and actually puts it out there, क्योंकि देखें हर चाय के खोके पे पाकिस्तान सही करने के सारे मसले भी होते हैं, सारे solutions भी होते हैं, और वो वहीं तक महदूद रहते हैं. वो चीज़ channelize नहीं होती on this medium. So how would you actually what would be your pitch to someone who has so much intellect? So the guy who I was telling you about yesterday, the guy from Airlift who came in, if he was so passionate about teaching others, and he was so passionate about anyone who comes up to him, he will give him all of his support. Invest करना है या कुछ भी करना है, वो करने के राजी हैं. But how does someone actually get reached to him? And how does he make a dent in the society? Because society is too large. 250 million people. तो यही एक टूल है. अगर वो अपना पॉडकास्ट शुरू कर दें, what do you not think that सच में कोई मोबिलिटी का अगर उनका पॉडकास्ट हो, हर जगह चेंज आना शुरू हो जाएंगे. People bus would have an app. छोटे छोटे जो बस वाले हैं, ये जो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, हमारे फैमिली से कोई भी है अपना बस शुरू करना चाह रहा है, they would actually know where to go. So I mean, do you agree with this? That someone should make content if they have this kind of a caliber for knowledge, and I feel like it's a duty now. Because
so I have a different opinion here.
Okay.
I do think that content creation is not for everybody. You know, there is like a whole guideline and exercise that we were going through with TikTok, where. And that's the reason why the app has been banned quite a few times, because of the kind of content people were putting up.
No, but so I'm talking about content on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, I'm building that bridge.
Okay, sorry.
The reason why it's coming on TikTok is because TikTok has made it easier to put up videos, right? The similar guidelines have not been given by YouTube and Facebook, because the masses have no idea what to do until TikTok came in. And they gave an opportunity to different people from all over rural areas of Pakistan to share what they want to share, right? And if it's not falling into a certain guideline, it led the app to be banned by the government whatsoever. But having said that, when people should understand that yes, if they could add value and change someone's life, absolutely do it. But also know it's for the long run game. Do not expect results the next day, because a lot of people started off and then they just stop. And when they just stop, they don't do it anymore. So, and also people need to also understand that this entire thing is a separate job on their own. So which is why I never push someone to do things that they're already doing, because I know how I have challenges to manage my time, and I'm singular right now. I don't have a family. I'm single. I don't have other commitments beyond what I do. But for the other person who maybe have commitments and other areas to look into, it may not be as easy as much as it might be, right? And it takes time for him to do so. So this becomes more out of a passion, out of a good heart, versus how much he could earn or do more from that. So ek to hame, I think it's people like you and I who would be those change enablers. So instead of asking them to do what they're doing, you're already on that path. You're inviting them to different spaces. And I think they should just take time to then meet more people and have those series of conversations. And eventually there would be some room where they would be able to contribute, right? So I think that really helps in terms of building that space and community. Because by the time they reach to that number and where they get popularity, it will be too late, right? And it takes time to bring that. That's how I see it. But it's us who could be able to, and many others who have brought this safe space where people can come together, and like you were so inspired by the conversation, this guest you had yesterday. So I think that could be one point, because I can understand the real challenges and how it is practically possible or not to do so. So that's number one. Number two, and if one person, I think as individuals, people need to start thinking beyond what is not for them, but for the others. And I think once that thought comes into each of these leadership teams or the managements or people who are having these conversations at Thabas or people who actually listen to, I think slowly in clusters we'll be able to make that change. So once they start thinking, yaar nahi, mujhe ab karna hai, mujhe baat karni hai. So it's a change of a mindset, a shift actually, to start thinking beyond their own personal needs versus how they could contribute to other people's success and value and eventually Pakistan. That's the spirit that we need to be in. So I think and content creation is not just limited to socials. Content creation, people have been creating content for a very long time through blogs. Blog is content. What else could be content? Radios are content. Television is content. Newspapers are content. So everything is around content. So if you can't make a video, you can write about it. You can do Facebook posts on different groups. Like I know this person who has been helping people to get UK visas just based on a Facebook group because he was quite active on it, right? So that all is content. Your words are your content. The people you interact in person is also content. You have these open mics, that's content. So content is beyond just videos and socials. I think it's in any way possible in your conversation, phone, emails, you can bring that impact. So I think now that I'm thinking and coming back to that question, so whoever is that individual and person who should be doing content but is not, just to realize that there are more avenues to explore. Yes. So if videos is taking you too long, do go to a radio show, I'm sure.
हम लोग तो कहते हैं भाई boring videos बना के बस डाल दो.
Yeah.
So whatever you have to tell and you think you can share, you should just put it out there.
I think that also these days WhatsApp voice notes become so popular. So that's content. You record something.
That gets disappeared.
And I get like 20 WhatsApp notes by my dad, like on a weekly basis. And some I do listen. Because some seem very important to listen because it comes with an image. But I see that's content, right? Someone circulating.
ऐसे ही.
and someone wants us to hear him out. And sometimes you already get like good information that aaj ye hai, kal wo hai, like, you know, you get those daily updates. So I feel that will only happen once the individual himself will realize ki yaar, how could I do things for the other person? So that's a shift in the mindset, not challenges in terms of the space of content, because there are far too many avenues which does not require much effort. That I would say.
I've pretty much wrapped up all I could ask. Is there something that you might want to add
To the conversation.
to the conversation? Some kind of an advice that you want to give to someone either starting off with content or someone who just किस तरह बदल जाती है जिंदगी with only watching a video. I mean, those is something that we already covered, but if there was something that you wanted to add, definitely.
I feel like when you do make content, the person who's making it and also the one who's watching it, either or you're adding some value to yourself, to your own skills versus the other person who's viewing you. And I believe that there is one person out there, and every person you know is something better than you are, right? So there's so much room for learning from each other. So if I'm good at something, maybe I'm not good at something that you are really good at, right? So regardless of the age, gender, or your class, there's one person who can do it better than you, right? And if you learn from people, from the space, by viewing it, you can always, as a society, will only grow and society will be able to make a larger change. I think that's one thought I would like to let people live and, think about. What is it that...
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It was really an honor. And आखिरी कराची की सबसे अच्छी बिरयानी कौन सी है?
So I haven't pinpointed or come to that one specific
अभी
biryani.
तक जो अच्छी लगी.
I think you must have tried it. Do you guys own it? Because that goes with
Allahwala
the surname. Allahwala biryani and beef biryani is pretty good.
नहीं.
You haven't had that?
I've had it. We don't own it. No.
Okay. But Allahwala biryani is super. I found Al Rahman chicken biryani pretty nice. And the third is Nasib's pretty good too.
This one?
Sometimes
it's good, sometimes it's bad.
The consistency का issue है.
ये बहुत मसला होता है.
ये मसला रह गया है. But these are the three I've liked so far. But no, sorry, I take back Nasib and I bring Qadri.
Okay.
The Nadi biryani in Liaqatabad.
So I haven't been there yet.
So you don't have to get Nadi biryani, but you can get the normal beef biryani. It's mind-blowing. Now I'm thinking about it just in my head. So that's a great spot. And I'm sure there's so many others that I still have yet to try. But so far from what I have had, these are my top recommendations.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Saad.
Startups, entrepreneurship, starting your own new business. Join me every week as we dive into stories, topics, and advices from the top founders, innovators,
The crazy ones, the misfits, the troublemakers.
every Saturday at 4 p.m. I'll see you there.